Hey, this is Mr. Hargesheimer. I'm here to review week 4 from Language Arts and talk about your week 5 assignment. We're doing informative essays. Make sure that you are commenting to check in for attendance purposes. I apologize, but Ingrid is not with me today. She is busy with her own schoolwork, but she will be back for social studies on Friday. So, this one should not take real long today, so let's go ahead and get started. We are talking about informative writing, where you're explaining, illustrating, or analyzing something. The key is, again, you're making it clear for readers. So, the standards we are looking at from last week and this week, we are working on obviously writing an informative or an explanatory text. Last week, we worked on the introduction. You were to have introduced your topic clearly. We had a hook, a little bit of background information, just like a listing of it, and a thesis statement, which is what the main idea of your essay was going to be. This week, we are going to be working on the body, which is your relevant, well chosen facts, any details you have, the main ideas of your essay. And we're going to end with a conclusion that connects it directly to the introduction. So these are the parts I'm going to talk about today. For your digital backpack of skills, depending on what you're working on, this would definitely go in for everybody, an effective communicator. It may go in, depending on what your topic is for some of you, for a prepared and resilient learner, if you're making real world connections, showing some content knowledge, or if you're looking at issues from different people's perspectives or global issues, that would be obviously in a globally and culturally competent citizen. Keep in mind that you have to have a new artifact from the NTI period in at least 3 categories. So if you've already completed that, you're fine. If you have not, this would be an excellent one to put in. It would be a good one to put in anyway, just to have this model where it's handy for you next year when you have to write these types of things again. So we'll review what we're going to go over today and then get started. Week 4 was last week, April 27th through May 1st. We did an introduction. We had a hook. We had a little background information. We had a thesis statement. And you were to identify or list 2 to 3 main points. I don't have a lot of these in yet, which is why I'm spend a little bit of time today going back over it, give you guys another opportunity to look through it and get that completed. Week 5, that's this week. It's May 5th today, and the due date, which again, they're always flexible, is going to be the final draft of this. So all we're going to be doing this week is taking the main points that you identified last week and just turning those into paragraphs. If you had 2, you're going to have a couple of paragraphs. If you had 3, you're going to have an extra paragraph for that one. And then you're going to write the conclusion, which is going to be restating your introduction. So we're putting everything together this week. So a sample introduction that we looked at last week, and this is also in the attachment that is in Google Classroom, has a hook, the story hook variety at the beginning. So this is going to be a little bit longer than all of the other hooks. So because we have a model of this last week, I'm going to leave it up for a few seconds, but I'm not going to read through this whole thing because we're going to look at it again towards the end when we're looking at the conclusion for comparison. But what I want you to know is this hook at the beginning is telling a story to get you interested in finding out and wanting to read more, like what's going to happen. There are details in there about kids being harassed, intimidated, and beaten. There's the provocative statement towards the end that you are a slave to the factory owner. because it has you imagine and it says you, like the second person, it's designed to draw you in. It gives a little bit of background information after that about the number of kids who are in child labor. It defines what child labor is. And then it gives the thesis statement. And this is going to be the important part that we're connecting back to. Because children work in conditions that are illegal, dangerous, and exploitative, which means the owners take advantage of them, child labor should be ended. So we looked at vague and more clear topics or more clear thesis statements. A vague one might be child labor should be ended. But when you add the introductory clause that because children work in conditions that are illegal, dangerous, and exploitative, you have made this a little more clear for the reader in your thesis statement. So this is making the thesis statement a little bit better. So what you're going to be working on for week 5, we're going to be beginning with the body. We're going to look at a couple of paragraphs out of our informative essay to examine the parts of it. So this is the point in your essay where you're going to explain your main ideas. Depending on what you're writing, you may have facts and statistics at this point. Facts, probably, definitely. Statistics, a maybe. But this is where your supporting details come in. You may have identified a couple of things to talk about, and now is where you're going to give some details and talk about them. And there should be some kind of connection to your thesis statement. Each one of your main points, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, is going to be a separate paragraph. So you may end up, if you have 2 main points, with an introductory paragraph, 2 paragraphs for the body, and a paragraph for the conclusion. So you're looking at about 4 paragraphs, probably at a minimum. So here is one example from the model essay on child labor that, again, is included with the Google Classroom attachment. 53% of child laborers are from Asia and the Pacific, and 30% live in sub-Saharan Africa. Over 60% of all child laborers work in agriculture, fishing, hunting, and forestry. Over 14 million children work in manufacturing, including the carpet industry in India, Pakistan, and Egypt. So we're getting some facts, we're getting some statistics. It's going to connect right back to the thesis statement, which I'll give you another quick look at. That children work in conditions that are illegal, dangerous, and exploitative. And when we look at the numbers of kids in this, and that they're working in agriculture, manufacturing, forestry, that would be dangerous for kids, depending on what they're doing, and also exploitative. They're taking advantage because they're kids, and child labor should be ended. So again, this is in your packet that I attached to Google Classroom. So a more specific look at the body paragraph. So these are going to be the main ideas that go along with this model essay that I've attached. It begins by giving the types of child labor, and this is in the body of it after the thesis statement. Then it's going to include some child labor statistics, which we've just looked at. And it's going to tell the story of Iqbal Masih. And if you are in my 4th period language arts class, I believe you have read an essay about our friend Iqbal. If you are in my 3rd period language arts, the model essay gives kind of an overview of his life, and it's worth looking up. So the most important parts of each paragraph are something that I'm going to be looking for in the grading. Details, examples, and an explanation or a connection. So what they mean, why they're important. Here's an example from the essay on child labor. Around the world and throughout history, the children of poor families have had to work to try to help support their families through difficult times. So we're already kind of introducing the types of child labor that are out there. Child labor became extremely widespread during the Industrial Revolution. Children were small enough to fit into small factory spaces and to work with the small parts of machines. They were Also easy to frighten and intimidate. Factory owners paid them less and forced them to work long hours in dangerous conditions. So we're already looking back at the dangerous and exploitative conditions that were mentioned in the thesis statement. Although children have always worked and been hired out as workers and apprentices, reformers began to fight for better conditions for all workers, including children. So I don't need to go in the history of this because when we looked at the era of reform, child labor was part of that. But what I want you all to look at is that these details are directly connected to the thesis statement about child labor being dangerous, being exploitative, and it should be ended. So, in your body, again, make sure you have a separate paragraph for each of the main points that you were to have identified last week. Which takes us to the conclusion. So, for a conclusion, you're going to provide a summary of if you did a how-to, you're going to provide a summary of the skills you need. It could be the main points that were in the body. At this point, you're at the end of your essay. You should not be adding any new information, and you should not be bringing up any new questions that need to be answered. Now, you can refer to, if you had a question at the beginning, you can repeat that question in different words at the end just to bring home a point, but you shouldn't be bringing up anything that's going to cause people to want to know more. You're wrapping things up. There should be some kind of reference to the hook. You should have a reworded thesis statement or thesis sentence. And you should identify the main ideas that were included in the essay. So here is the example that is in your informative essay that again is included in Google Classroom. And I keep repeating that because I've had a lot of people ask me questions about things that are directly included in the instructions that I attach. So here's the introduction. I'm reading through the introduction this time so that we can point by point show how the conclusion is a rewording of that. So imagine being 11 or 12 years old. You go to school and you play with your friends. Your family is poor, but your parents work hard. Then, one day, there is a family emergency and you are told that you must leave school to work for a short time in a local factory to pay off a debt. When you get there, you are intimidated, harassed, and beaten. Every time you take a break or get a drink of water, your pay is taken away. You soon realize that you will never pay off your debt. You are a slave to the factory owner. So this is the hook part of it. And this is going to be the background information and the thesis statement. Child labor is work that harms children or keeps them from attending school. So this is defining child labor. They're going to go into the body and they're going to define child labor a little bit more. Across the world, 215 million children work in agriculture, manufacturing, mining, and other areas. And this is listing the main point that's going to be the statistics on child labor. Now we're going to get into the thesis statement. Because they work in conditions that are illegal, dangerous, and exploitative, child labor should be ended. So this is our introduction, and we are going to get a rewording of this introduction that is going to be our conclusion. Child labor is an important issue that affects children from around the world. So again, they're referring back to when they talk about different parts of the world. Without a proper education, nutrition, and healthcare, these children will never be able to improve their lives or those of their families. So this is a reference to the hook where they're talking about family emergencies and children having to work to help out their families. And this is going to be the reference right back to the thesis statement. Unless more people realize that child labor is something that exists in every part of the world, these children will never get the help they need. So when they talk about at the beginning, child labor should be ended, Their solution for this problem of child labor is raising awareness so that people can act on their new knowledge. Now, the scoring guide. And again, we are working on the met, not yet. So I want you to know what is going to be considered met and what would yield you, I guess, a not yet on this essay. For the week 5, I'm going to be looking at the entire essay, intro, body, conclusion, and giving you just kind of a general score. So when I return it to you, if I include in the notes on Google Classroom or in my message that you need to fix something, if I ask you to fix something, that fix is going to take you from a not yet to a met. So for the scoring guide, there should be some focus and some details, which means you're sticking to one topic. It's clear. You have main ideas that are clear and they're supported by details and explanation. This is a direct reference to you have a clear thesis statement and that the body is the body includes necessary details. The organization of it, there should be a very clear introduction, clear body paragraphs that elaborate or expound on this introduction, and a conclusion that summarizes what you talked about in the essay. If it's unclear and it's kind of a rambling thing, obviously it's going to be in the not yet category. Grammar, mechanics, and spelling. For the informative essay that I had you write for social studies, I didn't look at grammar, mechanics, and spelling very much. But for this one, it doesn't have to be 0 errors, but if it's a lot and it's distracting, then I'm probably going to ask you to fix them. If it's difficult to understand because you have so many, I'm going to ask you to fix them. And when you type these in, you should already be getting indications, the squiggly line underneath the words that are mistakes. There are different color lines for things that don't make sense, word choices, those sorts of things. So you're getting a lot of help already by typing this into whatever device you're using. So take advantage of that. If it says there's a mistake, take the 2 or 3 seconds that they're asking you to take to fix that mistake. So again, there'll be a met, not yet. And at the end of the grading period, which will be for you all May the 27th, I will look at that you have a passing percentage, which is going to be around 60 or above. If you have that, then you will have met for that category, whether it be language arts or social studies. So I'm combining all these things together for one grade, and that grade will be part of the 5th and 6th weeks combined. So you'll have the grades that are already in Infinite Campus, and we'll add the met or the not yet to that. So please enjoy the rest of your week. Stay busy, stay organized. Again, set yourself aside some time and a place where you can get your work done with a routine. And I have office hours every day. I'm available except when I have meetings between 11 and 2:30. I'm usually on the computer by 7:30 at the latest every morning. And I stay on there until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon or so. So you can contact me through messaging. I had been having office hours, Google Meet office hours, and through the first 4 weeks, nobody's logged in yet. So I'm assuming I'll keep putting that one up. But as long as I'm relatively quick on getting you answers back through the email or Google Classroom, there may not be a need for that. But I'm going to try to continue with that just so that I'm available for you. So anyway, I hope you guys have a wonderful afternoon. Stay safe. We are still not out of the woods on this thing yet. So stick with the things that have gotten us this far. And I hope everybody has a great day.